So Mr. Chambers is on?
I am.
Yes.
Excellent. And Ms. Winall's on?
Carol,
Yeah, I see Mr. Carroll there.
I'm ready to go live. All right, I'm going to call us to order. Welcome, everyone. I'm Dan McGraw from the town of Ashland, and I'm happy to serve my role as the chair for this upcoming term. We all join me first. We say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we do have welcome and introductions, but that's going to take us a long time with this august body. So I'm just going to say welcome and introduce myself and our vice chair, Jordan Stewart from New Kent, and our secretary, Dr. Newbill from the city of Richmond, and our treasurer is not here. Yeah, he had another meeting. He had a scheduling conflict. Byron Atkins is not able to be with us here. So I do have some participants from remote. One of them is for medical reasons, and another is because he's on the West Coast, so there's no way for him to be here physically. However, there's a third person that we just found, Ms. Winall. Can you unmute and state your reason why you were remote?
Yes, I have another meeting coming up that I'll have to be traveling to for some of this, so I figured I would just do it from the car.
Excellent, thank you. That's all we need. So is there a motion to confirm that the chair's decision to approve the member's request to participate from a remote location was in conformance with the PlanRVA Commission policy for remote participation of members, and the voice of the remotely participating members can be heard by all persons on the primary or central meeting location?
Second.
So moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Oh, I skipped over roll call? Thanks. I skipped over our roll call. So can we have a roll call of attendees, please?
Yes, sir. Town of Ashland, Chair McGraw.
Here?
Mr. Trevette. Mr. Chambers.
Here.
Charles City County, Mr. Atkins. Mr. Patterson. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
I'm here remotely.
Thank you. Mr. Holland.
Here.
Mr. Engel.
Here.
Ms. Schneider.
Here.
Let's see, Dr. Miller.
Here.
And Mr. Davy.
I haven't seen him.
He is out of town.
Okay, good.
Goochland County, Mr. Spoonhour.
Here.
Mr. Lyle.
You don't count.
Hanover County, Mr. Davis.
Present.
Ms. Dibble.
Present.
Ms. Pritchard. Mr. Ledbetter.
Here.
Mr. Waddell.
Present.
Thank you. Henrico County, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Rogish.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Mackey. Mr. Bast. New Kent County Vice Chair Stewart.
Here.
Ms. Pearson. Irvin Hathaway. Powhatan County, Mr. Donati. Mr. McClung.
Here.
Mr. Powers. Ms. Winall.
Here remotely.
Thank you. City of Richmond, Dr. Newbill.
Here.
Mr. Addison. Ms. Robertson. Mr. Poole.
Here.
Mr. George.
Present.
That concludes the roll call
Madam-
attendance. We do have a quorum.
Ms.
Yes.
Scott, we do have Frank Petrosky here from Chesterfield County.
I'm sorry, I
Please
failed
add
to
him
call
to
his
this.
name.
Not a
I'll
problem. Yes,
add that.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have Mr. Dwayne Cosby from Lucas County.
Thank you. I will add Mr. Cosby and,
Ms. Kosky.
yes,
Frank.
both
All
to
right.
the
And
attendant.
Ms.
Thanks very
Scott,
much.
Chris Bass from Henrico County as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. And we have new members. Welcome. This is great. So next on our list is a consideration to add to the agenda or take away. Looking over the agenda, is there anyone who wants to make any adjustments to our agenda?
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Mr. Chair.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are now moving on to the public comment time. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak at this time? Seeing none, I'll close public comment.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I might be indulged, I just want to thank staff, especially Ms. Scott, for the reminders and the agenda and the meeting notices going into the future. I'm a single guy and I don't have that little voice in my head that says, don't forget you've got to be at PlanRVA tomorrow, and her reminders help immensely. And another, I guess an invitation, this coming up Tuesday is National Night Out across the nation. And Hanover kind of likes to get ahead of the curve, so we're kicking it off on Saturday from 10 to 2 at Green Top. We'll have the Hanover Sheriff Department and all the first responders and community organizations that serve our community and keep us safe. We invite y'all to come out and see what we've got in Hanover, and y'all are welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so we have our next, the approval of our minutes. We have the minutes from April 11, 2024, and the minutes from June 13th, 2024, not 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second.
All right, Holland moved and Snyder second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so action request and motion to approve them. All right. New business. This is for me, is that right?
And I can do it, if you like.
I'll turn it over to Ms. Schickel.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Kim Hines, the Executive Director of the Central Virginia Waste Management Authority. Kim and I have known each other and been able to work with one another for a while, but if you're not familiar, the Central Virginia Waste Management Authority is responsible for implementing solid waste management and recycling programs for the 13 jurisdictions in the Central Virginia region. And as such, they are also responsible for preparing and submitting the solid waste management plan for the region and preparing and submitting that to the Virginia DEQ. So she's here today to share with you the highlights of the update to the solid waste plan for the region. And we have 3 action items on the agenda associated with that update for acceptance relative to the communities that are in the PlanRVA footprint. Kim, it's great to have you and appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the commission, appreciate you having me this morning. As Martha mentioned, we are the Regional Solid Waste Authority. We serve 13 jurisdictions, which includes the 9 in PlanRVA and 4 additional jurisdictions that are in the Crater planning area. So we cover a little bit more expanded area than your footprint. But we certainly appreciate the partnership, and CVWMA was actually formed out of the Richmond Regional Planning Commission almost 35 years ago now, so this is kind of where we started. Again, thank you for having me. CVWMA is the keeper of the Regional Solid Waste Plan. We developed it on behalf of the 13 jurisdictions. We are required under the state waste management regulations to update it every 5 years. and update it periodically as changes happen in the region in regards to solid waste. So that's why I'm here today. Anytime, and again, under state law, anytime there is an expansion, a new landfill, or a cessation of landfill capacity, we have to do a major amendment to the regional plan. And a major amendment includes having a public hearing for that particular amendment. It includes approval by the CBWMA Board of Directors and approval by both Richmond Regional and the Crater Planning District Commission. So it's kind of unusual that we have 3 plan amendments at one time, but that's just sort of how it came about and the timing of those. So the 3 amendments or the request to amend the plan were in your board agenda. I will go over each one of them individually, and they do need to be considered individually as part of the plan. And then once we have all of the proper approvals, we'll submit it to DEQ for the final approval and amend the plan accordingly. The first one is Amendment 10 to the plan, and that is regarding the Shoesmith Sanitary Landfill. Shoesmith is located in Chesterfield County and is a municipal solid waste landfill, which means they take in household garbage or any type of garbage other than hazardous waste and certain other materials. The landfill is currently permitted by DEQ. There was an expansion of the landfill into an adjacent quarry that was originally approved by DEQ, however, did not get final approval by the Chesterfield Board of Supervisors. So that capacity, the quarry capacity, is not coming to fruition and will not be available for use by the region. So that amount of capacity is about 33,700,000 cubic yards, or about 17 million tons that will not be coming to fruition. Shoesmith is not closing quite yet, so there is some capacity remaining in the existing footprint of the landfill. So this amendment is just to remove the quarry portion of the landfill. And they are working on the modification to their DEQ permit to also remove what's called cells 27 and 28 related to the quarry. We had a public hearing, CBWMA had a public hearing on May 17th regarding this landfill, and we did not have any public comment for or against. We did hear from SES engineers on behalf of the landfill, just to confirm that we're only removing the quarry capacity and not closing the landfill, because they are still doing some work there, and they are still taking in some waste. So we will come back at some point in the future with when that landfill does finally reach capacity and will close. So this is just to remove the quarry capacity. So we didn't receive any other public comment, and after that, the CBWMA board voted to approve Amendment 10, and we have also taken it to the Crater Planning District Commission, and they have also approved Amendment 10 to the plan. I'm happy to answer any questions about that specific landfill if you have any.
Kim,
Mr. Hunt.
when do you anticipate, have they given you a date at which time they will not take in any trash refuse? Did they give you a date?
They didn't give us a specific date for closure. They did say that they aren't currently taking in MSW anymore. What they're taking in is inert material, dirt, stone, things like that, to do some grading that will fill the remaining capacity. So I don't think they'll open up to take any more MSW other than what they can use in the landfill for grading purposes and remaining fill.
Okay.
How long that takes, I'm not quite sure.
Thank you.
And for those listening, MSW means?
Municipal solid waste,
Thank you.
household garbage.
Sorry, I
Trash.
have a vice chair at our town, he loves acronyms and wants to know all of them, so I just want to make sure.
Okay, so sorry about that.
No, it's quite all right. It's quite all right. Okay. Any other comments or questions? If none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the resolution approving Amendment 10 to the CVSWMP.
I'll second that. That's in my district, by the way. Chesterfield County.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, moving on to the second portion.
Thank you. So the second amendment, which is, well, Amendment 11, actually, to the plan, this one's related to the Tri-Cities landfill, which is located in the city of Petersburg. I know this is outside of your jurisdiction, but since it's part of ours, it still has to come before you. This landfill was originally owned by the city of Petersburg and was then bought by a private company, and they are no longer accepting waste or MSW into the landfill and is in the process of closure. They discontinued taking in waste in late 2018, and their permit has ultimately been revoked by DEQ, so the landfill is currently in closure. It had a little bit of capacity left, about 500,000 tons, that is currently in the regional solid waste plan, so this amendment will remove that capacity as it's no longer available for use. Again, the CVWMA board had a public hearing on May 17th. We did not get any public comment. The landfill is in agreement also with us moving forward with taking that capacity out of the plan. And the Crater Planning District Commission already approved that, and that one is in their region. So happy to answer any questions about that one. And that one is an MSW landfill as well, taking in garbage and trash from all sources.
Kim, do you know why they failed to fully utilize the existing capacity, the 500,000, so to speak?
Because DEQ revoked the permit for compliance issues.
Okay, compliance. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Not hearing any, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to adopt the resolution approving Amendment 11 to the CVSWMP.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Amendment
Okay,
12.
last one. This last one would be Amendment 12 to the Solid Waste Management Plan, and this is regarding the East End landfill, which is a construction demolition debris landfill in eastern Henrico County. So this landfill can only take in construction demolition debris, so it cannot take in MSW or household garbage, so it can only dispose of that type of materials. The facility currently does not have the local zoning or the provisional use permit required by the county, and is required by the county to operate. So the facility is being forced to close. So there is some remaining capacity, approximately 108,000 tons of remaining airspace that is currently in the plan. And this will obviously remove that capacity from the plan and as they go through closure. Again, we held a public hearing on this as well on May 17th, and we did not get any public comment. And our board of directors approved this amendment, as well as the Crater Planning District Commission already approved this amendment as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the East End landfill.
Thank you, Jim.
This is for compliance issues for the commercial.
For the construction demolition? Yes, they had some compliance issues with the county and with the DEQ. And the county is pushing for closure of this landfill.
How close is that to the MSW part of the landfill? I've got friends in Vermont.
Gotcha. They, so the construction demolition debris landfill is on Darbytown Road, and the Old Dominion landfill in eastern Henrico is also off of Darbytown, Charles City Road. So they're right in close proximity.
Okay.
And MSW landfills can take in construction demolition debris. So there is availability at the Old Dominion landfill to take in some of that material as well.
And a notice question, should this have been the MSW landfill, how would the residents of the Verona district been notified? Should it have been the MSW part of it?
So, I mean, we noticed a public hearing in the newspaper. We would have had to have a public hearing, the same as we did for these 3 landfills. So we put notice in the newspaper. We work with the locality, especially the host locality, on notification as well.
Okay.
So the regular channels.
Okay, I may have stirred a hornet's nest with my friends in Verona. I saw this and didn't know which, and asked them if they received notice, so Reverend Nelson might be getting some calls, and I apologize for that. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Science.
Hey, good to see you too.
Just a quick question. A couple of these seem like that they may have been put in, how does something get into the actual plan itself? Because a couple of these sounded like they were put in the plan, and when it went back to the locality's like, no, they didn't agree with that plan. So how did they actually get into the long-term plan?
So we developed the plan and include in the plan where we know our waste is going, and what is already permitted by DEQ. So really, that's kind of where it starts. If they have a solid waste permit and some of our waste is going there, that's how it gets into the plan. Originally, yes.
So it doesn't go through like the locality first. So the first one were Chesterfield. It was put in the plan, but then when it went to the board said, no, probably not what we want to do.
Right. So yes, it does have to have local, I think each local government has their own kind of rules and regulations surrounding landfills as well. So, and part of their permit does require local approval. And if years down the road, the locality decides, either the landfill is a bad actor or not in compliant, and they want to, move forward with closure, they can decide that as well. So it's kind of up to the jurisdiction, but the DEQ permit does require local approval, and that they're compliant with all the ordinances.
Any other questions, comments? Yes.
Hi, thank you. So I know that we're not supposed to think of these as connected, but we are a regional commission, so I'm just wondering, we talked about removing almost 18 million tons of capacity from like the regional system. What is it, how much more capacity do we have when we are growing the way we are?
Good question. So there are, and I'll just speak to the MSW landfills, or the solitary or sanitary landfills first. They are within our regional boundaries. There are 2 active sanitary landfills. One of them is in eastern Henrico, which probably has, they're on their last expansion, so they probably have 10 to 12 years of life left. So we're looking at that as we're planning, 20 years out. And then the landfill owned by Waste Management in Charles City County is also available, and that has 70 plus years of life remaining. It's a big one. We also include in our plan landfills that are available outside of our region. There is a Waste Management owned landfill in Amelia County, Waste Management and Landfill in Waverly, to the south, and then there are several to the east, in George, King and Queen and that area. So some of our waste does go outside of the region. The challenge becomes trucking our waste farther and increasing transportation costs and things like that, as we're planning for waste. So one of the things that we're doing as an authority and as a region is planning for how we can be less reliant on landfill disposal. Because I just mentioned 3 waste management and landfills, so there's not, at some point, there may not be a lot of competition, so which also drives costs up. So we're looking as a region for alternatives and for more waste diversion efforts. We're talking about composting. One of the largest components of what goes into a landfill is food waste. So we're exploring some of those alternatives to, within our region that we can do to be less reliant on landfills. So we're working on some of those strategies as well. And there's alternative technologies out there too that can convert waste, can convert raw MSW into a usable product, whether it's fuel or a thermal-like plastic or things like that. So we're exploring a lot of different opportunities over the next 20 years so that we ensure we have a place for our waste.
Along with that, could you speak to recycling and if it's getting done properly and how much of that is feeding into the filling of landfills?
So, well, we manage a lot of the recycling for the region, especially household recycling like paper cans, bottles, that sort of thing. So we collect it curbside. Also, there's drop-off centers around the region where folks can take their paper cans and bottles. Is everybody doing it? No. Is there a lot of room for improvement there? Yes. So we're working on some of that too, and kind of improving what we're already doing. We've got programs out there to recycle certain types of materials. It's just working on getting folks to do it and pull it out. So there's a lot of room for improvement there as well.
Just for your information, I called Ms. Hines a couple years ago, and our whole staff and myself went to visit one of the recycling centers. I encourage you. It's completely eye-opening and amazing what they do,
If you are interested, I am happy to set up a tour. Probably can't take a group this large. We might have to break it up, but happy to do that. If you want to coordinate through Martha, I'm happy to set up a date and time for anybody that might want to go and see the process, because you don't have to sort your material, and it's fascinating to see it come through the facility and get sorted back out into a commodity and baled and ready for market and that sort of thing. So I invite you all to come and check it out for sure. Thank you.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I appreciate that. Thanks for the plug.
Just a quick thing, sort of building on Cameron's point, just for everybody, I feel like your question around what is our overall capacity, I mean, that is a question that DEQ was wrestling with significantly in the previous administration. Lots of questions around new landfills across the state were coming up, and I know the administration was looking at how we calculate capacity. And I think that that's a question, I mean, it's a sort of big question around, are we doing it in a way that is still sort of consistent with reality? And so I think that's important. And then I would also sort of draw the connection to the great work that has been done around, from PlanRVA staff around the PCAP, the climate action planning, identifying waste as one of the top sort of areas that we can affect when it comes to reducing climate pollution from Central Virginia. And I think that waste diversion, you mentioned the organics recycling and composting and the food and yard waste is a great opportunity to divert waste to improve that capacity even more. And I think we've got a great opportunity here. So I think as we think about removing capacity from the planning documents, that's a great first step to force us to think about what is it that we can do to make sure that we are actually, taking a chunk out of both sides of this equation. It's not just about adding capacity, it's about reducing demand for that capacity. So I think that's the focus and a great opportunity for this, this body. We talk a lot about how the benefit of coming together as a region to think about this. I think it's a great example.
And we appreciate all of your support on that and working together with Martha and the team on that as well.
Yes, Kim, I just wanted to point out that, or ask a question first.
Okay.
Each of the jurisdictions here have representative on your board of directors, correct?
Correct, yes.
So we have appointed individuals on this board. For instance, in Hanover, we have one of our board of supervisors from Beaver Dam, Jeff Stoneman, as well as our public works director that attends this regional board. And I would just encourage all of our board members, especially our board of supervisors, to speak to your appointees. It's something that we're working on in Hanover County, because that conversation, sometimes we appoint people and then we never hear from them. And it's this type of information that we need to receive as board of supervisors, but we can't get that information unless we talk to our appointees. So if you don't know who your appointee is on that commission, find out who it is and talk to them so that maybe this conversation could have a little more meat to it instead of basic questions. So,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
And I'm happy to come out to any of your council or board meetings just to go talk about what's happening in the region and in your locality. If you are interested, I'm happy to do that as well. Or planning commission meetings, that sort of thing.
Yes to the tour invitation for recycling.
Great.
I've heard somewhere a while ago that some out-of-state entities truck some of their waste into Virginia for some of our disposal facilities. Is that true? And is there any way we can limit that if capacity is an issue?
That is absolutely true. Virginia is actually the #2 importer of solid waste in the country, behind Pennsylvania. So we, the landfills, most of the mega landfills that were built, they were built for that reason. So they're not just to accommodate local waste, they were built to bring in waste from outside of the area and outside of, it's a big business in Virginia for sure. So about 25% of the waste that's managed in Virginia comes from out of state. That's about 5 million tons a year. The state manages about a total of 22 million tons a year.
Is that counterintuitive to what we're trying to do, reducing pollution, or is it economically viable?
Well, it has been economically viable certainly from keeping landfill costs low for us. That has been, it's almost been, or at least in the past, has been almost a disincentive to recycling when landfill costs are cheap, when it's cheaper to throw it away than it is to recycle it. So that is shifting now that we're seeing some of these landfills close and capacity going away. Where, and especially some of them being owned majorly by one company, is driving up costs of landfill disposal now. So we're sort of seeing that level out now, so.
Ms. Hans, will you be available after this meeting by chance? For a few minutes, or?
Sure.
Okay, the only reason I ask is that I'm trying to be on schedule.
okay.
And this
Okay,
is
sorry.
clearly something that is interesting to a lot of people.
Okay, y'all hang
And
on.
we could be here for another hour or two,
Yeah.
never get all of our questions answered.
Sorry, I enjoyed
And
talking trash.
I just wanna be appreciative of everyone's time.
Trash.
So I appreciate you, thank you.
Absolutely.
This is very good.
Okay.
Is
We had that, yeah.
is there a motion for number 12? An adoption of resolution approving amendment 12 to the CVS WMP?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
And I apologize for rushing.
Thank you. No, you're fine, you're
Just,
fine.
your presentation is fantastic. I'm just.
Okay, I will stick around.
Thank you. So for moving on to number 3, standing committee and other reports. I reached out to as many of you as I could, and I know summer is the way it is, but it looks like at this point we have an audit facilities and finance committee of Byron Atkins, Sean Davis, Jim Holland.
Yeah.
If there's anyone else who wants to serve on that committee, please let me know. I'm happy to add you to it. The audit, finance, facilities and finance committee, it meets about 4 times over the course of a year. And right now it is Byron Atkins, Sean Davis, and Jim Holland. Are you wanting to?
I'm already on one of the other
Okay.
subcommittees, sorry.
All right, and then public outreach and engagement, I have Brent Chambers. Oh, sorry.
I'd be interested in.
You would be, okay. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush through it. Great. All right. Great. Okay, and then public outreach and engagement, I have right now Brent Chambers, Dwayne Cosby, Tim Davey, Cameron George, Dr. Reverend Milton Hathaway, Larry Ledbetter, Frank Petrowski, Neil Spoonhauer, and Charlie Waddell.
I'm on that committee. I've been to the
Yeah.
last 3 meetings.
So the thing is, the weird thing is, I know people are already on, and then every year we renew, and so I may not have reached out to you directly, and I apologize if I had not. I was in transition of
No worries.
going on vacation with my wife, and I was trying to get everything done, and so I've added you on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you can check my name on that one as well.
All right. Anyone else? Excellent. FY 2025 priorities for meetings. Time to share ideas, framing of the topic. The following is a list of possible schedules we have in September. One small step. Oh, yeah. So we'd have the people from One Small Step where they met people with different political ideas, if you will, and they talk. You may have seen advertisements on social media about it, but that is slated as coming up. In November, we would have a pre-K and K-12 funding discussion. In December, regional equity mobility framework. In February, housing affordability, partnership for housing and affordability. In April, broadband, and June would be our budget work, so that would, in addition, in discussion with Martha and with a few of you, I didn't get the chance to talk to everyone. We've decided to have our PlanRVA meetings every other month instead of every month to be appreciative of your time, because some of you serve on 3-4 different committees and it's like you're here every week almost, and so that just allows us to meet on important matters and not necessarily meet just to meet. So I'll open the floor for any discussion if that's necessary at this point.
Mr. Eagle just had a comment, it's a public meeting, just asked me why I didn't do that while I was chair, so. Appreciate the friendship from Mr. Eagle.
Well, to be fair, the idea came up under Chair Davis's watch. It did come up under his watch, and so.
Now, that's the way you look out for the person.
All right, so now that brings us to the Executive Director's Report, Ms. Schickel.
Thank you. I'll just point your attention to the intergovernmental and environmental reviews that start on page 26 of the packet. This is again an information item for you to see the work that our team does to process these each month. We compile this annually and include it as part of our report to the General Assembly through the Department of Housing and Community Development. Also, I just wanted to do a little bit of a recap on our PlanRVA Day. Thanks to so many of you for participating in the June 13th joint annual meeting. And many of you stuck around for the afternoon sessions where we hosted 3 programs, speaker panels that featured topics on exploring the evolution of local media and the tools for how we can partner with local media to improve our public information and outreach efforts. The second session was focusing on sharing data and best practices to improve decision-making with a particular emphasis on economic mobility from poverty. And then the third session focused on efforts that are underway in the region and across Virginia to address affordable housing gaps in our communities. My hope is that the information, the content was informative and provocative from a conversation perspective. We've got highlights of each of the 3 sessions on our blog that we've posted, so if that's something that you want to kind of go back and recap, and we also have the recordings of the 3 panel sessions posted on our YouTube channel. So certainly feel free to check those out or share as you feel appropriate. Attendance for the day was really strong. The room was packed all day, and we're really excited about that. And the feedback, generally speaking, was very positive. We obviously continue to have lessons learned about how to improve the flow and the events overall, and are excited to work with the Public Engagement Committee to talk about PlanRVA Day 2025. A couple of updates thinking about the future. We are planning a day-long event for 2025 as opposed to a half day. So we'll be able to have a full day of content that's standalone from the joint annual meeting. So we'll be separating those events. And we will be looking for an alternative location that can accommodate a larger group of people. The last 2 years in hosting this event, we've been at capacity and are actually turning folks away who wanted to register. And so we feel like we're at the stage where we can look outside of this room to host that event. So we'll be working on date and space identification in the coming month. This, by the end of August, is our internal target, so that once the Public Engagement Committee starts gearing up at the end of this month for its first meeting of the year, we'll have the ability to start talking about content. Our hope is that the general theme of the day, year over year, can be about how PlanRVA is supporting the region's vision for the future. And so the content will kind of follow our programmatic areas, but we certainly welcome input from our localities about important conversations that need to happen then, how we could tie it in with your public engagement efforts, and really be able to, stimulate good discussion about how the region's working together to make the future better. If there's input that you have, feedback, I am certainly, the invitation is open, and we can have ongoing discussion over the next couple months to prepare for it.
Thank you. Now, is there any comments to Mark on this? All right. We move on to partner report, and again, it's Ms. Schickel.
Thank you. The newsletter will be coming out soon. We'll make sure that the distribution reflects our membership of the commission, so take a look for that in your inbox as soon as it comes. We always target it to come out the end of the last week of the month, so we're getting it, final edits are happening now. And we have included, with thanks to Janice and staff, CVTA report and a TPO report in your packet. This is, just as a reminder, our way of making sure that every month you are up to date about what's happening with the other 2 boards that are part of our family of organizations. The CVTA gets a report from the commission and the TPO, and the TPO gets a report from the commission and the CVTA, so that everybody is seeing what everybody's doing. Hopefully particularly helpful to those of you that don't happen to sit on all 3 of those boards. So those are there, and I know Mr. Parsons here if you have questions for CVTA, but I don't know, Chet, if you have anything planned to say, but you're here for questions if you've got them. Great. I'll just make one note. You should all have, on the TPO report side, you should all have received a save the date notice. We've been working closely with the Port of Virginia to put together a tour for the policy board members, the TAC members, and the CTAC members associated with the RRTPO. Commissioners and CVTA members are also invited to attend October 3rd. More details and registration information will be forthcoming, but we're really excited about the opportunity that the Port of Virginia has extended for us to bring a delegation from the Richmond region to Hampton Roads. The CEO of the Port of Virginia, Stephen Edwards, has cleared his calendar to be with us for a part of that day. So the plan is that we will, thanks to GRTC, board buses in this region in the morning, drive together to visit with the port folks. We'll be able to have, I think, really exciting access to see the port facilities, multiple of them. We'll drive back after lunch when we've been able to have kind of a information session from port officials, and then we'll drive back and come back to the Richmond terminal here in our region and be able to get on site inside the gate to be able to hear from the leadership there about the impacts of both the Hampton Roads facilities and the Richmond facilities here on the Richmond region. So we're really excited about this opportunity. And again, more information forthcoming, but we're just very pleased with how the planning is working out so far. And that is October 3rd. So please mark your calendars and again, look for information about how to register.
Thank you. Any comments or questions about the reports? Hearing none, we have a special program for the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia. And again, Ms. Fickle, are you going to introduce our guest speakers?
Yeah, so July is normally the month that we have our emergency management program feature with our partners from the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia. Since we didn't have a July meeting, they're here with us in August. Many of you got to hear from the chair of the Alliance, Stephen Herring, in June at the joint annual meeting, but that was just a brief snippet. And so our chair and vice chair are here today. I pulled some bio information for both of them, so I hope I don't embarrass you too much, but just wanted to be able to give you a sense of the expertise that you see in front of you right now. So Stephen Herring does serve as the chair of the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia, but he also in his day job is the local health emergency coordinator for Virginia's Department of Health. Previous to that, he was serving in Chesterfield County for fire and EMS as the Emergency Management Public Outreach Coordinator. And he also, prior to that, was the Emergency Management Planner for the University of Richmond. So great body of expertise there. And his colleague, Darshan Parikh, also is the vice chair for the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia, currently serving as the Senior Emergency Management Specialist for Berkshire Hathaway Energy, Gas Transmission and Storage. And before that, I believe that you guys worked together in Chesterfield County. And so Darshan was the Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator there. Both have master's degrees in their respective fields and have impressive resumes and have been phenomenal leaders for the emergency management officials and emergency management professionals from around the Central Virginia region for the last, I guess you're 6 months into your term or 7 months into your term now. And we're just really pleased to hear an update from you all about what's happening in your world. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioners, for having us here today. And thank you for having us back after our presentation on PlanRVA Day. We're happy to give you some more information today on the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia, some things that we're working on here in 2024, how we're continuing to grow capabilities here in the region, and then some takeaways for you as we leave you here today. So just as a reminder, this is our footprint here. This is all of the localities that encompass the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia. We encompass localities from, I believe, 7 different planning district commissions, including jurisdictions within PlanRVA. We're not a operational response entity. We're a collaboration of volunteer emergency managers from these localities that come together underneath the guidance of we work better together. And we try to share and collaborate and share best practices among each other and then build preparedness and readiness through that collaboration and utilization of grant funding that we acquire on behalf of PlanRVA. PlanRVA manages and acquires those grants on behalf of us as our fiduciary agent. And we have a fantastic relationship with PlanRVA and the work that we together can accomplish for the region.
Great, thanks, Stephen. And thank you all again for having us here to talk about our priorities. I know with emergency management, what you see in the news every day, right? Emergency management continues to play an increasing role in what you see, and I'm sure that you've spoken with your emergency management coordinators locally on what they do, and that's playing even more of a role day to day now. So a couple just updates for the board. So meeting Emergency Management Alliance in 2024. So Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia was born, several years ago, right? It was born out of a federal initiative. After 9/11 occurred, we had a surge of, federal funds that came into the region. And it was mostly staffed by local emergency management coordinator staff, or emergency management coordinators. Since then, we're really pleased to talk about how we've grown the Alliance and how, even just our leadership has shifted to expand actually to include not only local emergency managers, but we have, as you can see on the screens, we have representatives from state agencies, from private universities, including University of Richmond on there, local governments you can see as well, including the private sector. And that really is just a microcosm of the entire Alliance's membership. We have hundreds of members ranging from the actual emergency management coordinators to allied professionals such as, your Department of Social Services staff, right? So we have a wide swath of individuals that come in and participate, really all in the name of identifying and leaping on synergies that we can develop in the region. All right, so a couple of priorities for us this year, and really will probably be next year as well. First and foremost, Stephen had mentioned funding streams. And so one of the things that we wanted to talk about was how do we continue providing the services that we provide to our member localities and organizations with potential reductions in federal grant funding going forward. One of the funding streams that we use right now is the State Homeland Security Grant Program. That's a federally administered grant through State Emergency Management. That's seen a 10% reduction in funds this year. So we're not able to say what that impact is going to be on our region and our localities just yet, because we've just submitted those grant proposals. But next year, when we come back and report out, we can actually tell you, hey, this is, these are the programs that may have been slashed and cut, or we may have had to find other, avenues to work around those and find creative solutions to it. So I know Steve and I will go into some of those projects here in the near future, but with saying that, one of the calls to action we have for you all following today's meeting is, definitely reach out to your local emergency managers if you haven't done so already. Talk to them about what needs they have to sustain their programs and efforts. Not only that, but also, what needs they may have going forward, growing their programs. I mean, we're all aware of a, growth in population in the region, growth of services demand, special events, et cetera. So it's, right now is the time to get ahead of this and really talk to those individuals. All right, so also looking at our enhanced collaboration with our partners. I know we have an excellent working relationship with PlanRVA, so thank you, Martha, Sarah, and Katie for everything you all do day to day for us. And we really want to expand that too, right? We understand that our footprint is larger than PlanRVA, so we're trying to get in touch with the other planning district commissions, collaborate with them in the same way that we're doing here with PlanRVA. We're also working more closely with the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. Stephen mentioned that we're not an operational entity, right? So what our goals are, building preparedness in the region, capability, and, mitigation of hazards. We're not gonna, when a disaster occurs, we're not the one coordinating, hey, this person goes to this person goes to this place to respond. That's, really happens locally and then through the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. So just to identify some lanes there, but we're working with that state agency to work through that. Not only that, we're also working with our counterparts in the Hampton Roads and Northern Virginia regions. They have the benefit of still being federally funded groups, fully federally funded through the Urban Area Security Initiative. We do not, but we're staying right with them, and we're just as collaborative and just as beneficial to our respective regions. All right, and then last but not least, again, it's just focusing on our programs and projects that we're going to be working on that we'll cover here shortly.
Perfect. So, and as Darshan mentioned, we have this group that is no longer just encompassed of local emergency coordinators, we're encompassing state and community-based partners as well. And you were given a flyer that includes membership of our executive team that includes our elected positions, myself and Darshan, as well as the chairs and vice chairs of our different committees, just to kind of represent the vast variety and breadth of the emergency management professionals and where they come from. So for our growing capabilities, how are we trying to build that preparedness? How are we trying to enhance that readiness within the region and at the local level? I mentioned during PlanRVA Day a lot of our committees, and I want to just dive in a little bit more to them now to talk a little bit about what they're doing individually to help support emergency management. Our Mass Care and Human Services Committee, as I stated during PlanRVA Day, really helps to try to build resiliency and preparedness regarding mass care, coming to sheltering, mass feeding, family assistance centers. I mentioned our Mass Care Symposium. I really just wanted to highlight that again. That was the first Mass Care Symposium since 2019. It included professionals from over 120 professionals all across the state. We had a lot of information presented on family assistance centers, volunteers during mass care, how do we meet the need of mass care today, and we're already in the planning process to do one again next year. One of the big benefits that we have tried to identify is shelter video training. We acquired PlanRVA on behalf of the Alliance back last year, acquired grant funding for us to start this project, and it culminated earlier this year with a 1-hour overview of what a community shelter looks like that can be used for training of new staff and agencies, as well as just-in-time training if staff needed when a shelter operation starts. It goes through what a shelter looks like from when registration occurs through dormitory, health and medical, mass feeding, etc. And we're pairing that with another specific video training series, kind of like part 2, where we're focusing specifically on those specific sections such as pet sheltering, health and medical, dormitory, and there'll be videos specific to those sections that will be as a enhancement of this training series to continue standardizing shelter training in the region. And then equipment purchases. Once again, we're here to really build preparedness, so those grant funds are really utilized to purchase equipment for jurisdictions that can be used as regional assets, such as cots, helping build CPR training. This is something that is being done down in Crater, which we are starting to develop a several regional resource asset consisting of mass care supplies and other items that can be used down in Crater if jurisdictions need it housed in a specific location. And then let's say, for example, a jurisdiction down in Sussex opens up a shelter and they don't have enough cots, they can tap into that regional resource asset to get the additional cots they might need for that shelter. Then we have our public outreach committee. How are we working to build and prepare our communities when disasters occur, so that way they know what to do. That way our first responders can focus on those calls of immediate life safety. We've had a great partnership with the Richmond Flying Squirrels over the past few years. We have videos that have been prepared with Nutsy in them that are showcased during the various Richmond Squirrels game, and then we go out on behalf of PlanRVA, Katie, and the Alliance members go out various times throughout the baseball season to hand out preparedness information. We just did this last week with preparedness night at the Squirrels. We have some nights devoted to pet sheltering, which we hand out that preparedness information and try to get the residents where they are going to hand them those information and get them the resources they need to prepare themselves at home. And some of that information is those preparedness bags. Each one of you have a preparedness bag on your desk or on the table that looks like this. This is kind of some of the tangible benefits that we purchase with those grant funds that we hand out to our community members. That way they have some swag items, some items that can actually be utilized in their emergency kit, as well as resources, information they can use at home to prepare for disasters to help build their overall community resiliency. So that's just a tangible item that we can buy and we do get with grant funding to hand out to our community members. Then our Regional Community Emergency Response Team Committee, or CERT. CERT is a volunteer program that's usually housed within local emergency management offices. Residents can go through this program to go through courses to teach them essentially everything that they need to know. That way they can take care of themselves, their families, their neighbors when disasters occur. And then after their training is done, they can stay through the program and volunteer either through emergency situations if they're needed, or during the blue sky days, during community events, etc. Our Regional CERT Team Committee is comprised of CERT programs from Hanover, Richmond, Chesterfield, Henrico, Goochland, Chesterfield, and a few others that work together not only to build regional capacity and readiness, but also to enhance their respective CERT programs. In 2023, they held a CERT forum, which brought best practice, had CERT program managers from all across the state come to Chesterfield County, had a whole day of, hey, let's bring training to these CERT program managers, let's bring VDEM to the forum to talk about the state of the CERT program within VDEM and where it's going. And then they followed it up a few weeks later, with a skills rodeo in which these regional CERT programs and those volunteers came out to Chesterfield Fairgrounds. They had a whole half a day of training on various different types of CERT activities, and then it culminated at the end of the day with a CERT exercise in which they actually got experience working together on a regional exercise, so that way if they got deployed regionally, they would be able to work better together. State CERT training, I do want to really highlight this. So we have not had a state CERT coordinator here in Virginia in quite some time, I want to say over 5 years. And because of that, we haven't had the ability for our program managers to be taking the CERT program training and the train-the-trainer training to teach their CERT classes. If they needed to take that training, we would either have to acquire an out-of-state instructor to teach that, or they would have to go to FEMA. Through our regional CERT committee, just within the past few months now, we have actually been able to have the chair of that committee go through training, and now he is able to teach those courses in the state now for the first time in over 5 years. So we're very proud of that. And then regional CERT support. I mentioned the partnership with the Richmond Flying Schools is a great example of we are able to have these various CERT volunteers from all across the region come together and support events and then build that readiness and capacity and knowledge of working together so that we had some type of regional emergency management incident and CERT got deployed on a regional basis, they can work together. I also really want to highlight that Darshan mentioned earlier about that reduction in Homeland Security grant funds. A few years ago, I want to say about 4 or 5 years ago, CERT programs all across the state used to acquire SHSP grant funds for their programs. I want to say it was over 5 here in the region, not counting all across the state. That continued reduction in SHSP grant funding has now resulted in our regional CERT committee being only one of 2 programs in the entire state now that has received SHSP grant funding last year. And we're seeing that continued decline going forward.
Great, all right, thanks, Stephen. So, and one more thing to touch on, I know somebody had mentioned the National Nights Out that are coming up here, right? These are the exact materials that you can expect to, see, and your local emergency management staff has access to these materials through, Katie, and Martha and Sarah. So, these materials were purchased for that reason, right? It's to really get out into the community, and we're also trying to identify other ways, right? We know that not everybody in the region comes to Flying Squirrels games all the time, right? So, trying to look for those other opportunities, and I think that's maybe a touch point with this group, as well as, what other opportunities would you think of that we could go out there and share this information, right? How else can we get into your communities to share this information? So it's just something to think about. But moving on to our planning committee, so our planning committee really focuses on 2 things, right? The strategic plan for the Alliance. So how do we fill the gaps that, once VDEM comes up with their strategic plan and their actions, how do we fill the gaps that VDEM is unable to fill for a variety of reasons? How do we supplement those? And then how do we also, further Alliance goals, right? Other Alliance goals that we have that maybe don't align exactly with what the state agency is doing. And so we're working on a new version of that right now. That'll be out hopefully here in the next couple months, early next year. And then Business Recovery Workshop is something that was conducted in 2023 where the Alliance PlanRVA partnered with Richmond Chamber of Commerce and really got out in front of business leaders to talk about, what would you all do when an emergency or disaster occurs? How is your business impacted? How can you ensure that, continuity of operations for yourself, but also for, your staff too, right? So a lot of different considerations there, and that was a great opportunity for emergency management to get in front of those groups and to share that message and build capability in the region. All right, next we have Training and Exercise Committee. This is one of our busier, or not busier, but busiest committees, I'd say, just because of the amount of training and exercise that occurs in the region. That's one of the best ways that we build capability. Again, if your local staff is conducting a full-scale exercise of some sort, those are good opportunities for you to connect with them and get in, look at what this would actually look like in the real world. So we have a bunch of resources that we can support those exercises and training opportunities with. If you were, I believe at PlanRVA Day, the trailer is out here, right? So if you were here, you would have seen that. That is chock full of all of the materials that you would possibly need to host an exercise or to run an exercise. So that is a tool that is available to any locality organization in the EMACV footprint. And that was acquired through, the SHSP grant funds, but again, a very, very strong tool that we have in our arsenal. We regularly hold incident command system classes. For those that are not aware, that's basically when disaster occurs, how do we organize ourselves in a way that we can collaborate across jurisdictional boundaries. We know that disasters don't respect, our jurisdictional lines. So how do we train our staff to work with one another if they have to go across and help each other out? And last but not least is training support. So we have opportunities for members to go to training sessions that may be out of town, out of state, with the expectation that they bring that training and knowledge back to the Alliance, share it with our members, and then become a resource regionally for us as well, right? We don't just want to send people, we want to make sure that they're bringing that value and that resource back. So that's another item that the Training and Exercise Committee is working on.
And with that training, I just want to highlight that a lot of the jurisdictions that take advantage of those training support are those jurisdictions who can't provide that training or can't go to that training. They don't have the funds to go to that training themselves. So they're able to tap into the Alliance to be able to get that training and give those best practices so that way they can then better support their community and the region.
Thanks, Steve. And so I just wanted to touch on briefly, some, I know that there's some interest in some of these budding threats and hazards that we're seeing a lot more of on the news, right? Even just last week, we had a major cyber issue with that, with CrowdStrike, power and utilities, and, how are those impacted, as well as just climate-related issues. So, the Alliance itself is not able to really mitigate the issue from happening in the first place, right? We can't stop the hazard from occurring, right? That's not really our specialty. We're not cybersecurity analysts. We may have members in our group, but that's not their role through the Alliance. So, what we really focus on for any of these sort of hazards or the domino effects of them is, let's get out in front of it as best we can to prepare not only community members, but the practitioners themselves. So, it's with materials that you see in front of you, those bags, swag that Stephen pointed out, and it's really not just swag. I mean, these are all items that people can use and should go home with and, make plans with their families, right? And so that's really our goal here. So, we do mitigation through community preparedness. We're building relationships with stakeholders. If we're talking about power and utilities, our August general body meeting is going to be over at Dominion Energy, right? And we have a really strong professional relationship with them, to where, they will host us, and we're very open about the information we share with each other and and how we collaborate. We also, we're supporting PlanRVA's efforts to identify critical infrastructure in the region. And not only that, but just, really identifying what is out there, right? What could be impacted. A lot of it is held through private industry. So it's working with them as well to know, hey, what major impacts could we have here? If somebody is the malicious actor, what might they choose to attack? How might they choose to do it? And that's really the first step in taking any action. We have to understand what the threat landscape is. So that's really the first step of what we're doing there. And last but not least is continuing to update the Richmond Crater Hazard Mitigation Plan. Every 5 years, I believe, is that cycle. And really what that does is, talks about threats and hazards across the region, and then also identifies actions that we can take to mitigate those threats. And then those actions are then connected with federal mitigation funds that we can apply for through local government. So again, this is how it all ties together. And just again, to hone in on, if I had the ability to, I would make it so that none of these would be issues, right? But I think unfortunately they are, and the Alliance is getting ahead of that by supporting our membership, a lot of them being local emergency management coordinators in your communities, with resources and tools and training that they need. But the other side of that coin is, they also need support from, your all's roles as, local elected officials too, right? So again, that call to action, connect with them if you can, if you haven't already. It's a really good opportunity to learn more about what's going on locally in terms of preparedness and response efforts for these sort of hazards.
Perfect. So yeah, as those takeaways, we talked a little bit today about that reduction in grant funding, how that's going to hurt our capabilities potentially and reduce our ability to, increase readiness within the region and the localities. So connect with your local emergency manager and identify like, hey, if we were to see this continued reduction in SHSP, how could that impact readiness at the local level? How could that impact readiness for your jurisdiction? And how can you then identify what are some funding sources that they might not be tapping into that you might know of that, hey, this is some ways that you can then supplement and apply for grant funding to supplement those SHSP funds to continue building readiness for your jurisdiction, which then builds readiness for the entire region. And then just continue being an involved stakeholder. We're happy to be here. We're happy to give you this presentation on what we've been doing, and we're happy to come back at a later time to continue talking about some of the great work we've done between now and then. And by then, we'll be able to clearly articulate what impacts we are seeing from those grant reduction cuts, because then we'll have the information back from our recent grant submissions on if we got them and then what we did comparative to previous years. Thank you, and now I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Were some of your reductions in grants due to the governor pulling us out of Reggie? Those were dollars that were part of preparedness for flood readiness, et cetera?
So the reduction in grant funds, so that all comes from federal legislature, right?
So no state funds.
So the state has a role to play, so I'll kind of outline the process. So, right, federal, elected officials, they're gonna outline how much money is provided through SHSP funds to local, or to state government. In our case, right, it flows down through Virginia Department of Emergency Management, and then that state agency kind of decides how things are allocated across the state as well. Now, part of that federal funding is also pre-allocated to law enforcement, right? We can't even touch that pot, and there's some other allocations that we can't really touch. So I don't know if Sarah, Katie, or Martha, you all want to expand on anything as far as.
Congress approves the amount that is allocated towards state homeland security program every year. So that's where we don't have any control over, if they decide to cut, a certain percentage, and then that flows down to us.
And with those SHSP grant funds, there has been a big shift to align them more with FEMA's national priorities. And with that shift to align them more with those national priorities, there has been that shift to allocate them more and more to law enforcement and reduce the amount that's being allocated to emergency management programs.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? How about for our people that are online with us? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it, and I appreciate the package. Anything new to come before us? All right, well, it looks like for my first one, we're gonna be ending a little early, so we are adjourned.